guest today is a commercial plumbing service contractor and owner of GreenTeam Service Corp in Fort Lauderdale, Florida. He's also an apprenticeship advocate and blue-collar success coach. Proud Nation, please welcome to the show, James Terry. Hey, James.
How are you?
Good to have you, man. So tell us a little bit about how you got into business and became a plumbing contractor.
Yeah, so kind of like a lot of second and third generation plumbers, my dad had a small company in Miami, got into some trouble as a young youth in New York, got in with the wrong crowd, had a couple of bad fights, and mom said, we're moving to Miami. And so I started working for my dad at, age 14, carrying the channel locks, riding in the truck, doing the everyday 14-year-old stuff, which you don't have that much responsibility at that point. But and my dad's way of teaching was very unique, very, here's the tools, kind of figure it out yourself. Really kind of made me reliant on figuring out how to get jobs done with the least amount of materials and the least amount of experience possible. So flooded a few houses as a 15-year-old, definitely blew up water heaters without turning, putting the water on first and turning the electric on, burnt up a couple of walls. But overall, my dad would literally just drop me off at a job, repipe a house. Here's a bucket of fittings. Here's 60 feet of copper, some straps, some hammer and nails, and I'm going fishing. I'll be back at 4 o'clock. Hopefully you're done. And so the need for kind of coming up with ways to make things work without having the right tools and the right material really helped me think a lot as a young apprentice. I wasn't even really an apprentice at the time, more of a helper, but as much as I kind of resented the fact that my dad didn't have all the right tools to do the job, I look back and it was probably the best thing that ever happened to me. Because when I finally got serious about work, I realized what it was like to really actually have the tools that you needed and how great of a job you could do with the right tools. So from that point, I worked for my dad for about 5 years, and believe it or not, got injured at work one day, actually cut the end of my finger off in a ball valve, believe it or not. Don't ask how or why. But ended up with 9.5 fingers, or 9 3/4, I should say. Went to my dad 2 weeks later and said, hey, can I get some money to pay the medical bills? And basically my dad said, hey, Jim, you made $1,000 last week, man. You need to take care of that yourself. And so at that point, I really started to think about what the future would be like without health insurance. And I really started to have some life-changing thoughts, and walked into a supply house one day and asked the owner, hey, can you get me a job? I'm looking for something serious. A couple of guys told me to, get involved, get into an apprenticeship program, whether it's a school board, get serious about a career where you can have great benefits. And so the next day, I got a call from Nagelbush Mechanical, which is a huge mechanical contracting firm down here that did plumbing as well. And I joined the union, got in as a first-year apprentice, or pre-apprentice, I should say. And at that point, started my career in construction, did a couple of high-rises, and immediately realized that construction in South Florida sucked because it was so hot. Being out on a deck on the 31st floor in the middle of the summer wasn't really something I was interested in. And at the end of the day, service is what I knew. I like construction. I learned a lot of layout, came up with some innovative ways to do things on that job, but ultimately ended up in a service truck and spent the two to 3 years doing, condo service, high-rise condos, small construction projects, ran a couple schools. And right in my third year, it was 2008, and at that point, got fired and evicted on the same day. My boss, I was living in my boss's house, and obviously the economy was tanking. Lost my job in my house on the same day, and had to make a decision at that point, and kind of knew the writing was on the wall. I wasn't getting another job. So at that point, I made the decision to trade in a 1992 Nissan 300ZX T-top 6-speed for a E150 Econoline, which was probably the hardest thing I've ever done as a 23-year-old.
You bet.
It was a horrible deal, but I didn't have a choice. I knew that that van was my key to the next step in making some money. And so from side job to side job, I went. I actually, at that point, had already passed the construction side of the master exam, and I failed the business. So spent a little bit of time kind of soul searching, found a qualifier, went through that process, ran into the wrong people, finally passed the business, and then started a company. And, basically homeless, living in a friend's house, luckily met up with another mechanical contractor who, I made a business plan, went to entrepreneur.com, learned about what a business plan is and looked at the structure of it, made one for myself, handed it over, and at that point was asking for, $20,000 to start the company. This particular guy who was a multimillionaire said, listen, you don't need money. You just need resources. Here's a van. Here's some tools. I'm going to get you into a couple of hospitals here locally. I'll use you as a subcontractor. And things got started there. We started in the healthcare industry, quickly moved into Class A office, and then from there got into a bunch of schools. And at that point, I was a third-year apprentice, actually employing my instructor. So it was a really weird kind of way that things happened. I kind of was always used to being the youngest guy in the room, so I guess I got used to it early on. But it was from that point I knew, I wanted to do something big. I liked residential, and I still do today for the right people. But I knew, because of the fact that I was a union apprentice, I knew what the wages were. The average hourly rate for union employees, somewhere around $45 to $50 an hour, with benefits, with all that, which is about 30-40% higher than a typical, plumber. And so doing the math in my head, I knew that I wasn't going to be able to be competitive in the residential market. So that's what geared me directly for these bigger and larger accounts from the beginning. And that's the reason that we went after the hospitals and the Class A office buildings and the schools, and the hotels, and kind of going after the customers that were more in tune to more willing to spend a little bit more money to get a higher quality product or a more valuable product or service. And it was the best thing that ever happened to me. I had no idea that the structure of some of these vertical markets like Class A office, and if you're not familiar with Class A office, it's basically 30 to 40 story, Class A, super nice buildings where all the attorneys, all the doctors' offices, all the high-end tech companies, they're in these buildings. And what I didn't realize about those customers was the fact that they were structured where you can have one relationship with one person, and they can give you, 20, 30, 40 buildings, and it blew up pretty quickly. And at that point, I got crazy, branched off into AC and electric. By 2015, we were, Inc. 5000, had all these great things happening. And when I looked at our bottom line, we weren't making any money. And what I realized was I went out of my comfort zone, and I'm a plumber by trade. I've always been a plumber. And electric and air conditioning just didn't fit the bill because I couldn't go out and fix it myself. And anytime you have to kind of tell someone how to do a job without actually knowing how to do it, just didn't work out for me. Went through a lot of different people and just couldn't find it right. So fast forward to 2016, we're back to just a commercial plumbing company with in those four vertical markets: healthcare, hospitality, education, and Class A office. And we're just plugging away day to day.
So, James, I want to ask you a question because I'm listening through your story, and it seems like really having health insurance was a pivotal moment for you. And I'm asking that because we're at a time right now where I hear business owners kind of debating, what they should do to help. Should they help employees with benefits? Should the employees stay in the ACA market? What are all the different things they should or should not do? And so a lot of them are having issues on hiring. So how important do you feel like having the benefits and health insurance? It seemed to be important to you, and I'm just curious how important you feel like in today's market that is.
I think it means a lot more than people think it means. When it comes to health insurance, especially the young, people are having kids at a young age nowadays, and even in, I'm in my mid 30s with a 5-year-old and a 3-year-old. Those kids are at the doctor every other week. I'm at the hospital, 4 times a year, and all things considered, you can put as much money as you want in someone's pocket, but when you start talking and looking at the cost of healthcare right now, it is so expensive on an individual aspect. Most employees would prefer that the contractor take the majority of the burden and pay for it. So I honestly think in the world that I'm in, and I interview people that come from other companies that don't have the benefits that we have, most companies aren't going to pay full family benefits on an individual plumber. And so, we offer that.
Oh, wow.
It's because, we're a union shop. I grew up non-union. My dad was non-union. I have tons of non-union contractor friends. The benefit of the union in this aspect, and we'll get into that a little bit more when we talk about apprenticeship, is the way the pay structure is done. Everything is taken care of. Instead of me paying a healthcare company to pay health insurance, I'm paying the union, and the union is buying that on a group effort, and they're getting a great rate for a really good health insurance platform. So I think that it means a lot. I think that when I interview somebody and say, hey, I'm willing to pay you, $28 an hour, and he knows that the other guy that he just interviewed with is willing to pay $28 an hour, but I say I'm going to offer you full family insurance and a pension, it's a no-brainer for that guy. The decision's already made. He's going to come work at my company because he wants that better insurance. At the end of the day, I think it's a really competitive edge having great benefits. And it's tough. It's not easy. I can say that, in 13 and 14 and 15 and the years that we broke even, if not lost money, we were still hiring, and I think it's a mindset. A lot of business owners these days just don't understand that you have to continue to invest, even if you're not making money, even if your profit margins are horrible. You have to continue to invest in the people. You have to continue to invest in infrastructure, because at some point you're going to come over the horizon and you're going to get to the top of that mountain and you're going to have a company, but you're also going to have money. But I think a lot of people don't, they get to that year 3, year 4 mark and they're like, oh my God, I'm not making any money. Yeah, but you have to keep going on that grind and be willing to reinvest year after year in things like having great insurance. People say it all the time. I can't find good guys. I can't find good guys. And what I ask them is, well, what are you paying? What are your health insurance benefits? What kind of pension? What other benefits are you offering? And how are you advertising those? And the other thing is culture. If you have a great company culture and people talk, people know, people understand that you're a great company to work for. And so that's going to attract other people too. So I think all those things have a lot to do with, the benefits and the changes in the workforce in the market right now.
I see all of those subjects as kind of being connected. I mean, when you've made a decision as a business owner to spend the extra money to get good benefits, you're sending a clear message as a leader of that company to any prospective employee and to your existing employees. I care about you and your family. And
Yep.
I can't think of a better way to start building a rock solid culture than to communicate those kinds of values to the people that work for you. And that's a key. And I mean, culture is so huge. It's one of the distinguishing factors that we see all of the time. And you're right, man. Every potential hire has already figured out whether you're a good guy to work for and whether your company is a good company to work for. They're looking at your reviews online. They're looking at your Facebook profile to figure out, what people are saying and how you respond and connect with other people in your community. I mean, they know, and they're doing the work before they ever put in an application. So all of those things are competitive edges, I think. Talk a little bit about how you've built an intentional culture to really go after the kinds of good hires that you're interested in attracting to your company.
Well, I think having a great base pay, having great benefits, but also I think it has a lot to do with the technology. We use all kinds of different unique ways of running our business, the way we communicate with the technicians. more so a platform called Microsoft Teams, which is out there. It's an application separate from Microsoft 365, or it's part of Microsoft 365. And the way we communicate in that platform, and people basically, it's almost like social media, where every day you're getting a check-in in the morning. Nick is telling you that he's on his way to this job. He posts a picture of a repair that he just did. I jump in, say great job. Another management level person says, man, that looks awesome. Or they say, hey, tighten that up. That grout line's a little, it's a little shady. You need to put the sponge around there one more time and make that real clean. I think it has a lot to do with that culture, because we are creating accountability, but in return, or on the other side of that, we're also praising people on a daily basis based on their work and based on what they do. They have direct access to me at all times through that. We constantly communicate. We constantly have Toolbox Tuesday meetings. We offer a lot of opportunities to move up. Most of the guys, actually all of the guys that are on my management staff, higher level estimator, senior project manager, they're all technicians. They're all guys that work their way up into the field, and they got to that position. They got to know the customers. They got to know how we operate. They got to know, everything about our business. And now they're management level people, where they're not working in the field anymore. They're driving a brand new truck with basic tools inside, but they're not going on service calls anymore. They're leaders now. And so I think a lot of the younger guys see that, and they're like, man, and I continue to tell them, the bigger we get and the more opportunities that come, the more chances you have of becoming a leader inside this company. And so I think a lot of guys strive for that. It's not just, a couple of head honchos running the show and 20 techs. We have a very strong management staff of, in comparison, our ratio is off the charts compared to what a normal, service contractor is, because of the level of customer that we have. You have to have, the logistics are super important. I can't, if I go to repair a broken 3-inch cast iron line above an ER inside of a hospital, the logistics required to make that repair are tenfold versus a 3-inch cast iron line in a residential home or in a condo, because of the fact that we have the customer base. And I think that has a lot to do with the reason why people want to work here, is that we do the stuff that a lot of other people don't want to do. The crazy water main breaks, the crazy projects where you're adding an ICU, or you're adding a lab sink 40 feet away from any plumbing, and you're doing these crazy jobs that require 16-hour night straight through, and it's not your typical company. And I think that has a lot to do with it.
That in itself can attract really good people that are looking for those kinds of challenges in the work that they do. You mentioned something else too about upward mobility, right? A career path. There's opportunity for advancement. And I think that's something that smaller companies struggle with, because when you're just running 2 or 3 trucks, that may be the as far as you can go in that business. Yep. If that guy's not growing his business, being in a truck, being a tech, that may be all that there is for you at that company.
Yeah.
But being a company that has chosen to grow, you have the ability to tell your people, look, come with me on this journey, right? I'm growing this thing, and you're going to grow with me up into, positions of leadership and management that give you more money and more opportunity. You're going to be leading now. You're going to be growing those skills and that, as a leader. I think that's exciting to people. So it's kind of, people think that in order to grow their company, they've got to have good people, and you do, but the inverse is, the opposite is true too, that by having good people, by growing your company, it attracts good people. And I think that's a decision that a business owner has to make, but making that decision can attract even better people to you.
Yeah, and not to state the obvious, but being 33 years old in a world where it's hard to find young guys, there's an advantage there. They see the fact that I'm in this thing for the long haul, and they know that, and I can relate a lot more. And to some of the younger guys coming up. If you look at the average age of our staff, it's mid-30s, and that's there by design. And so, that's the plan, is to continue to grow this. And if you want to do it, you got to have people that are all in.
Yeah, so tell us a little bit about the apprenticeship program. I know you came up through it and really believe in it. So tell us a little bit more about that program and how someone could actually get involved with something like that.
Absolutely. If you're not familiar with the UA is the United Association. It's a national platform up in Annapolis. Every state has different areas with local unions. The biggest difference is the financial structure of union apprenticeship programs. It's all based on hours, right? If a local has 300 members, and out of those 300 members, they all work X amount of hours per week, they're taking basically 5 cents an hour out of those paychecks, and they're dedicating that money to apprenticeship programs. And so I think that has a lot to do with the reason why the union apprenticeships are so strong, is that they're very financially stable. They can afford to buy equipment and do the things that some of the other places can't. But the program I went through was just like any program. It's not like any program, but it's a 5-year program. Math, welding, pipe fitting, drawing, gas, boilers, and as I went through that program, I learned the things like drawing. When you have to draw an isometric in 4 different views, plan view, and it's been a while since I've done drawing class, and in service, we're not doing much drawing, maybe a little isometric here or there, but the things that I learned in that program gave me the ability to pass. There'd be no way I could draw a 20-story high-rise building without having the knowledge and knowing how to draw isometrically. And so a lot of the things that I learned in there gave me the opportunity to pass the master's test. As far as apprenticeships go, the earn while you learn, the whole thing is so big, because guys are able to go into the field and then come into the classroom, kind of bring what they learn in the field into the classroom, and vice versa. Whatever they learn in class, they're taking in the field. The structure of them being 5 years, I think a lot of people are, not so excited about going to school for 5 years, but it's 2 days a week. It's not a huge burden on somebody. It's 6:30 to 9:30. And the things that we're doing now and that differentiate, there was actually a program. I'm a trustee on the apprenticeship committee, so I get to go to these conferences and learn about what's going on in the world. And so 2 years ago, I went to California and learned about the RAC program, which was actually a Joe Biden deal. It's Registered Apprenticeship College Consortium. And what it does is it gives you the ability to go to a 4 or 5 year apprenticeship program, as long as they're registered with the Department of Labor. And you can actually, once you graduate that 5-year program, you can use those credits towards an associate's degree, as long as it's a college that looks at it as a viable apprenticeship program. And so what we learned from that is we were just actually, Florida apprenticeship grant just came out, $5 million to be spent statewide on apprenticeship programs, expanding them, making their programs better, bigger, and helping them. And so what I learned through that process was it's so important to get 3 people involved: the contractors, the colleges, and the apprenticeship program itself. Because you can't just send a kid to school and send him off on his merry way. They have to understand what the opportunities are past that and see that. And so I think the contractors aren't engaging enough in that program, So I spend a lot of time talking to all the kids. Every time a new first-year class comes in, I always talk to them about what their opportunities are. The problem you get is some of these kids don't stick out the 5 years. They get through second or third year and they start to miss class, and they're not you got to be dedicated. And I think that's a big thing too. It's the people that think that plumbing is a career for them haven't spent enough time digging holes, and it's hard work. You guys know that. It's hard work. And in order to go from an 8-hour trench digging day directly to a classroom to learn about gas or learn about isometrics, you've really got to want it. And I think that's the problem, is that people in their minds are going, okay, yeah, I want to make $28 an hour and I want all these benefits. I want to have a career as a plumber, but they're not patient and they're not willing to put the time in. And they get to that third year and they're like, oh man, I don't know if I can do this for another 2 years. So, we graduate we start a class usually around 25. We're lucky to graduate 7, 8, 9 kids sometimes.
Do you think that that drop off is, not just because the work is hard, but because they sometimes lose sight of how what they're doing right now and training and apprenticing connects with a bigger career goal later on? In other words, that short-sightedness, and they're not thinking big picture?
Yep. That's exactly what it is. They're not thinking that if they put 25 years in and they work a little bit of overtime here or there, maybe they go work a power plant, the ability to retire with an awesome pension, making anywhere in the realm of $3,000 to $4,000 a month lifetime, it's huge. But they just don't. A lot of people don't see that. Everybody's focused on what it is right now, and it sucks when you're a third-year apprentice and you're making $15 an hour, and with the way the economy and the market is right now, it's $15 for lunch these days. By the time you buy a drink and you tip somebody. And so I think that's the problem, is that people aren't really set up and structured. They need a $50,000 a year job to pay for their family and pay for an expensive home and cars. It's difficult. I don't, if I wasn't single with no kids, and I literally ate ramen noodles and peanut butter sandwiches for 2 years while I was going through that process, and lived in a friend's parents' house. But you have to be able to make those sacrifices and understand. I had an apprentice come to me yesterday. Hey, I want to be more productive. I want to get more done. Well, do you have all your tools? No, I don't. Well, do you have your tool list? No, I lost it. It's the first responsibility as an apprentice to make sure you have all your tools. So I just think that a lot of the guys don't see the big picture, and they're not willing to invest the time and the effort and the money to make it happen.
What's interesting about this, I just read something literally within the last week talking about that at least a third to half of everyone that starts college drops out before they graduate.
Yep.
So I think it's not just in
apprenticeships,
apprenticeships.
Yeah.
I think it's in everything. I think we have a culture that's so short-sighted sometimes that we don't see the long view. So I just wanted to throw that in, because it's not just the kids in apprenticeships. I think it's the people going to school.
Yeah. And I don't think there's any difference between that and some of the contractors out there that don't see. They don't see that they've got to continually reinvest year after year after year.
Good point.
People get to that second and third year like, why am I not making money? Why am I not making money? Or they're saying, save all the money, or spend it all. You have to reinvest in order to be efficient and successful. You've got to invest in infrastructure and technology and tools and equipment and vehicles. And people just don't see that picture. And you can't talk them into it or out of it. So,
do you see the apprenticeship program model growing beyond? Because I know you're coming from as a union shop, and it's a union apprenticeship program. But do you see non-union shops getting together and creating or making use of apprenticeship models and programs in order to attract better people as well?
I think the only way that happens is if you get on board with a local college. You have to legitimize apprenticeship. You can't say, hey, I'm, Chicago, Illinois apprenticeship program. Well, who the hell is that? You've got a tag team, and that's what we did here locally, is we tag team with a local college. And so now when we talk about our apprenticeship program and we say, we're a part of Broward College, so that when you graduate your program, you're going to have 27 credits and only have you only have 17 credits to go to get an associate's degree or a bachelor's degree. I don't know about how many credits it takes because I never went to college, but the 18-year-old kid who brings his mom to career day, who sees a sign that says a local college versus a local apprenticeship program with 2 pipe wrenches on it, is going to be more inclined to sign her son up to this program then if you have to market it the right way. And I think that's the biggest problem, is people aren't marketing it properly. They're not telling you all the benefits. They're not telling you about the job shortage. And the biggest problem is the only guys out there really preaching this are guys like Mike Rowe.
Yep.
We need more people talking about this, and not, purses and jeans and like all this unnecessarily over talked about social BS. People need to be talking about the skills gap and be talking about how a career in the trades is great money and has great benefits and leads to long-term opportunities, especially now. I mean, look at the internet. You can go on the internet and start a company, buy insurance, hire people, buy tools. You can go to Amazon. You know what I mean? Like, the things that you can do now are so different than 10 years ago. The average Joe can start a business.
Mm-hmm.
And I think a lot of people don't see that.
That is so true. Man, this has been great. Really appreciate you coming on. I know we could talk. I've got a lot more questions, but we've got to wrap it up. I wonder, what's the best way for people to get a hold of you?
So probably through Facebook. Just look me up, James Terry. Either send me a friend request, or actually I just made one of my private page public. Just look for James Terry, entrepreneur, blue collar biz coach. You can reach out to me, send me a PM. I spend a lot of time helping small business owners. I love it. I enjoy it. I think that a lot of people need to focus on mindset. I think mindset is one of the biggest hurdles to get over in order to become successful and grow a business. And I think that it's all about sustainability. You can start a company, but if you're a slave to your own business for the rest of your life, that isn't the reason. That's no fun.
Absolutely. That's true. So we always ask our guest at the end of the interview for a quote that has meant something to them in their own business journey. I'm wondering, James, what your quote might be, and maybe you could tell us what it means to you.
So I don't think it's so much a quote, but clouds and dirt. I think, to me, if you look at your company and even your life as clouds and dirt, more so your company, the clouds being the view from 10,000 feet and how you see your business growing, and the dirt being the everyday grind in there in the office, out in the field. In order for you to actually get to the clouds, you have to spend time in the dirt. But I think that most people don't understand that you have to spend time equally with both. If you continue to say that to yourself, did I spend enough time in the dirt? Did I spend enough time in the clouds? It's a constant pull back and forth between the two, that I think if you can find that balance of clouds and dirt, you will find success.
Oh, that's great.
That's very good.
That's good stuff. James Terry, thanks for being on the show today.
Awesome, guys. Appreciate you having me.